We are witnessing the end of the manual transmission. A driving icon may soon vanish forever. For over 100 years, manuals defined the art of driving, pure control, unmatched connection. But now, automakers are phasing them out. Electric cars, rising production costs, and shifting consumer preferences are driving a wedge between us and this timeless technology. Why are manuals disappearing so quickly? Can they survive in a world dominated by automation? And how will this impact your driving experience? Let's dive in. The birth of the manual transmission. Before driving was about convenience, it was about mastery, a skill that connected you directly to your car's heartbeat. The manual transmission story begins in 1894, with Emile Levasseur and Louis-René Panhard introducing a revolutionary gear system that allowed drivers to manually control their car's power. This system was the foundation of early automotive engineering, enabling cars to achieve greater speeds and reliability. Fast forward to 1928, when Cadillac introduced the synchronized manual transmission. For the first time, drivers could shift gears smoothly without grinding, making the manual not just a technical marvel, but a joy to operate. Driving stick wasn't just a necessity, it became a symbol of freedom, independence, and control over the machine. By the mid-20th century, knowing how to drive a stick was a rite of passage. It was called standard for a reason. If you could drive, you drove a manual. The manual transmission didn't just power cars, it powered the dreams of drivers who craved freedom and control on the open road. But as cars became more advanced, a challenger appears, one that promised to revolutionize the driving experience forever: the rise of automatics. Imagine a future where you didn't have to shift gears. This dream became a reality with the arrival of automatics. The first automatic transmission, General Motors Hydra-Matic, debuted in 1937, and it was nothing short of a game changer. Automatics eliminated the need for manual gear shifts, making driving easier and more accessible to the growing suburban middle class. By the 1950s, automatics were everywhere. Brands like Buick, Chevrolet, and Ford rolled out cars equipped with automatics, marketing them as the ultimate luxury feature. Drivers loved the convenience. No clutch pedal, no missed shifts, just smooth acceleration. By 1957, more than 80% of cars in the US were equipped with automatics. The manual, once the king of the road, found itself losing ground to a feature that promised effortless driving. Automatics didn't just simplify driving, they changed the way people thought about what a car could be. Still, as automatics gained ground, the manual wasn't ready to fade away, thanks to one driving force: performance. Manuals in the muscle car era. In the golden age of muscle cars, manuals weren't just preferred, they were essential for any true enthusiast. The 1960s and 1970s saw the rise of muscle cars, and with them, the manual transmission reached new heights. Cars like the Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Camaro, and Pontiac GTO became icons of speed and power, and manuals were the heart of their performance. Shifting gears manually gave drivers unparalleled control over their vehicles, making every drive an adrenaline-fueled experience. Manuals weren't just about performance, they were about personality. Owning a stick-shift muscle car said, "I'm here to drive, not just commute." During the 1970s oil crisis, manuals also gained traction for practical reasons. They were often more fuel efficient, making them the logical choice for cost-conscious drivers navigating skyrocketing gas prices. Manuals weren't just about thrill, they were about survival in a challenging economic landscape. For decades, manuals thrived as the beating heart of car culture, offering both unmatched performance and practical benefits. But as the decades rolled on, cracks began to appear in the manual's dominance, signaling the beginning of its slow decline. The slow decline begins. By the 1990s, manuals were no longer the default, so what changed? In the 1980s, manual transmissions accounted for 35% of cars sold in the US, but by the mid-1990s, that number had dropped to 27%. The reasons were clear: automatics were becoming more advanced, offering comparable fuel efficiency and performance. At the same time, automakers realized that automatics were more profitable. Manuals, once cheaper to buy and maintain, were now relegated to niche markets. They became options for sports cars and lower trims, while automatics dominated family sedans and SUVs. Adding to this was the cultural shift. Fewer people learned to drive sticks, and as demand dwindled, automakers stopped investing in manual technology. By the 2000s, manuals were no longer a standard feature, they were a specialty. The decline of the manual wasn't just just about convenience. It was a reflection of a world that was changing faster than ever. But the story of the manual's decline doesn't end here. Modern automatics and EVs are pushing it closer to extinction. Are you enjoying this journey through the history of the manual transmission? If so, don't forget to hit that like button. Your support helps us keep the conversation about driving culture alive. Why manuals are disappearing. Are automatics the reason manuals are vanishing? The truth lies in the tech under the hood. Automatics have evolved significantly since their introduction in the late 1930s. Modern automatic transmissions are no longer clunky, inefficient, or slow. They've become technological masterpieces, offering speed and precision that rival or even surpass manuals. Take dual clutch transmissions, for example. These systems use two separate clutches to pre-select the next gear, enabling lightning-fast shifts without interrupting power delivery. The result? Seamless acceleration that's nearly impossible to replicate with a manual. Many high-performance cars, like those from Porsche and Ferrari, use DCTs exclusively because they outperform even the most skilled manual drivers on a racetrack. Another innovation is the continuously variable transmission, which doesn't have traditional gears at all. Instead, it uses a system of belts and pulleys to provide infinite gear ratios. This design optimizes fuel efficiency, making CVTs a popular choice for eco-friendly cars like hybrids and compact sedans. Even traditional automatic transmissions with planetary gears have become smarter and faster. With the help of computer algorithms, modern automatics can adapt to driving conditions, offering a blend of performance and efficiency that manuals can't match. The rise of these advanced automatics has made manual transmissions feel outdated, forcing many automakers to abandon them. But the decline of manuals isn't just about technology, it's also about the skill gap that's growing with every new generation of drivers. The skill gap. Only a fraction of today's drivers know how to use a clutch pedal. How did we get here? In the early 20th century, learning to drive meant learning to shift gears manually. There was no other option. By the 1950s, automatics began to dominate and fewer drivers bothered to learn to stick. Today, the decline is staggering. According to recent surveys, only 18% of American drivers can operate a manual transmission, a sharp contrast to previous generations. Why the drop? One reason is simple: fewer opportunities. Most driving schools don't teach stick anymore, and many rental car companies don't offer manuals. If you don't grow up around someone who drives a stick or seeks out a manual car on your own, you're unlikely to ever learn the skill. Another reason is the cultural shift toward convenience. In a world dominated by multitasking, from checking phones to navigating GPS systems, many drivers don't want the distraction of shifting gears. Automatics let you focus on the road or whatever else you're doing without the added complication of a clutch pedal. This lack of exposure has created a self-perpetuating cycle. Fewer people know how to drive stick, so demand for manuals drops, which in turn leads automakers to produce fewer manual cars. The skill gap is widening, and as fewer drivers learn to shift gears, manuals risk becoming obsolete. But the manual's decline isn't just a matter of knowledge, it's also about economics. Economics of manual cars. Manual transmissions used to be the budget-friendly option, so why are they more expensive now? In the past, manuals were simpler and cheaper to produce than automatics. They had fewer parts, required less precision engineering, and didn't need the complex electronics that automatics rely on. This made them the go-to choice for budget-conscious buyers. But times have changed. Modern manual transmissions are subject to the same stringent regulations as automatics. Noise restrictions, emission standards, and safety requirements all demand costly design changes. For instance, reducing rev hang, a common issue with manuals, requires significant development work to meet emission standards without compromising drivability. Additionally, because manuals are now produced in smaller quantities, they lack the economies of scale that benefit automatics. Automakers have to spread development costs across fewer units, driving up the price of each manual car. Finally, automakers often position manuals as a premium feature, available only on higher trim levels or paired with specific performance engines. For example, many sports cars offer manuals exclusively on their most expensive configurations. This shifts manuals from being a cost-saving option to a value-added luxury. Manuals have gone from being the affordable choice to a niche product, a shift that's pricing out many potential buyers. But the biggest factor in the manual's decline may not be cost or convenience, it's the automakers themselves. Automakers move on. Why are automakers turning their backs on manuals? The answer lies in profits and priorities. Automakers aren't just making fewer manuals, they're actively phasing them out. Brands like Volkswagen and Honda have recently announced plans to eliminate manual transmissions from popular models like the Golf and Civic. These decisions are driven by several factors. First, automatics sell better. In a competitive market, automakers prioritize what sells, and the numbers don't lie. Over 98% of new cars sold in the United States today are automatics. With such low demand for manuals, it's hard for manufacturers to justify the cost of developing and producing them. Second, the rise of electric vehicles is accelerating the shift away from manuals. EVs don't need multi-speed transmissions because their electric motors deliver power differently than internal combustion engines. As more automakers transition to EVs, the manual transmission becomes irrelevant in their future lineups. Finally, automakers are focusing on features that appeal to modern consumers, like advanced driver assistance systems and connectivity. These technologies are easier to integrate with automatics, which further sidelines manuals. Automakers' shift toward automatics and EVs signals the end of an era, but it also reflects the changing priorities of today's drivers. As manuals fade from new car lots, the question remains, what does this mean for the future of driving culture? This story about the rise and fall of the manual transmission deserves to be heard. Share this video with your friends and spark a conversation about what we're losing and what we might still save. Cultural shifts and driving experiences. Has driving lost its soul with the decline of manuals? Driving a manual car isn't just about getting from point A to point B, it's about connection. For enthusiasts, the clutch pedal and gear shifter represent control, skill, and a deeper relationship with the machine. Each shift is a decision, a tactile and audible experience that automatics can't replicate. Yet, as automatic transmissions became the norm, this connection started to fade. Modern cars are increasingly designed to prioritize comfort and convenience over engagement. Advanced driver assistance systems, infotainment screens, and even autonomous driving capabilities now dominate the conversation about what makes a car good. For many drivers, this shift is welcomed. Commuting in traffic, navigating urban sprawl, or taking long road trips are easier in an automatic. But for others, it signals a loss of what makes driving an art. Manuals offered a sense of mastery, a way to make every trip feel like an adventure. This cultural shift reflects broader changes in society. As people prioritize efficiency and multitasking, fewer want to dedicate mental bandwidth to shifting gears. The car, once a symbol of independence, is becoming more of a utilitarian tool. The decline of manuals isn't just a loss of technology, it's a reflection of how our relationship with driving is evolving. But what happens to the cars that once defined this connection? Let's dive into the role of manual-equipped vehicles in today's market. The value of manual cars in the used market. Why are used manual cars commanding a premium? The answer lies in scarcity and nostalgia. As automakers phase out manual transmissions, demand for used manual-equipped cars is skyrocketing. Enthusiasts and collectors are snapping up models like the Mazda MX-5 Miata, Honda S2000, and Ford Mustang GT with manual transmissions, driving up their value in the used car market. Part of this demand stems from the rarity factor. With fewer manuals being produced each year, owning a manual car feels like holding a piece of automotive history. It's not just about driving, it's about preserving a dying art form. Additionally, manuals are often viewed as more reliable than automatics, particularly older models without complex electronics. This reputation for durability makes them attractive to buyers looking for long-term value. For younger drivers, manuals also represent a chance to stand out. In a sea of automatics, driving stick is seen as a unique skill, a badge of honor among car enthusiasts. This growing interest among millennials and Gen Z is keeping the demand for manual cars alive, even as new models disappear. Manual cars are no longer just vehicles, they're collectibles, investments, and symbols of individuality. But what about the environmental and technological trends shaping the future of driving? Let's explore how these factors are accelerating the manual's decline. The impact of electric vehicles. Electric cars don't just skip the clutch, they're rewriting the rules of driving entirely. Electric vehicles are reshaping the automotive industry, and one of their most significant impacts is the elimination of multi-speed transmissions. EVs rely on electric motors that deliver instant torque and a consistent power band, making manual gearboxes unnecessary. Tesla, Rivian, and Lucid are leading the charge, offering EVs with single-speed transmissions that provide smooth, uninterrupted acceleration. For automakers focused on electrification, adding manual transmissions would be both redundant and costly. This shift is more than technical, it's cultural. As more drivers transition to EVs, the expectation of what a car should be is changing. Smoothness, quietness, and advanced technology are replacing the raw mechanical feel of internal combustion engines and manual transmissions. While some enthusiasts lament this loss, others see opportunity. Automakers like Porsche are experimenting with EVs that mimic the engagement of a manual, using simulated gear changes and customizable driving dynamics. Whether these features can capture the spirit of a true manual remains to be seen. EVs are paving the way for a new era of driving, but they're also erasing a fundamental piece of automotive history. As the industry moves toward electrification, how will automakers preserve the legacy of manuals, or will they? The future of manual transmissions. Is this the end of the road for manuals, or could a comeback be on the horizon? The manual transmission may be fading, but it's not gone yet. Some automakers, like Porsche and BMW, are committed to keeping manuals alive in their performance-oriented models. Porsche 911 GT3 and BMW's M2 offer manuals as standard options, catering to enthusiasts who refuse to let go of the clutch. There's also hope in niche markets. Lightweight sports cars like the Mazda MX-5 Miata continue to embrace manuals, as do off-road vehicles like the Jeep Wrangler and Ford Bronco. These models prove that there's still a place for manuals in the automotive world, even if it's a smaller one. However, the long-term survival of manuals depends on more than just enthusiasts. It requires automakers to balance nostalgia with innovation, finding ways to make manuals appealing in a world dominated by convenience and technology. Some companies are experimenting with hybrid solutions, such as electronically assisted manuals that combine the engagement of a clutch with the efficiency of an automatic. These innovations could keep manuals relevant even as the industry evolves. The future of manuals is uncertain, but as long as there are drivers who value the art of driving, their legacy will endure. But what does this mean for you as a driver? Do you think manuals still have a place in the modern automotive landscape? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. The emotional loss for enthusiasts. When the clutch pedal disappears, it's not just a mechanical loss, it's a personal one. For car enthusiasts, the decline of the manual transmission feels like losing a part of their identity. It's not just about a way to drive, it's about a connection to the car that goes beyond function. Driving a manual transmission requires skill, attention, and engagement, creating a bond that automatics cannot replicate. The clutch pedal, the gear shifter, and the coordination required to navigate through gears are what make the experience special. Each shift tells a story of mastery and control, of being in harmony with the machine. Manuals are not merely tools for transportation, they are instruments for creating memories. This emotional connection is deeply rooted in nostalgia. Many enthusiasts learn to drive in a manual car, often taught by a parent, sibling, or friend. The act of passing down this skill created bonds and traditions that span generations. Losing manuals feels like losing these shared experiences and the stories that come with them. But beyond personal connections, manuals symbolize a certain purity of driving that is rapidly disappearing. As cars become more about convenience, comfort, and technology, the art of driving is being replaced by algorithms and automation. For those who value the tactile and visceral joy of driving, this shift feels like a loss of soul. The decline of manuals is more than a technological change. It's the fading of a lifestyle built around passion and skill. But for the broader market, the decline of manuals represents more than just nostalgia. It's reshaping how cars are sold and who buys them. Impact on car buyers. What does the death of manuals mean for you as a car buyer? The answer depends on what you value. For the average car buyer, the disappearance of manuals might not seem like a big deal. After all, automatics dominate the market for a reason. They're easier to drive, more convenient, and better suited for the traffic-filled commutes that define modern life. For most drivers, the choice between manual and automatic has already been made, and automatic won. However, for those who prefer manual transmissions, the impact is significant. As automakers phase out manuals, the options available to buyers are shrinking rapidly. Today, only a small handful of new cars in the United States are available with a manual transmission, and many of these are niche or performance-oriented models. The costs associated with manuals are also rising. Once considered the cheaper option, manuals are now often offered only on higher trims or with specific performance packages. For example, cars like the Toyota GR86 and Ford Mustang GT offer manuals, but they are far from affordable for the average buyer. What was once once an economical choice is now a premium feature, accessible only to those willing to pay a higher price. Used car buyers face their own challenges. With fewer new manuals entering the market, demand for used manual-equipped cars is rising. Popular models like the Mazda Miata, Honda Civic Sai, and Subaru WRX are commanding higher prices on the used market, making it harder for enthusiasts to find affordable options. This scarcity is particularly challenging for younger drivers. Many teenagers and young adults interested in learning to drive manuals are finding it difficult to access affordable cars to practice on. The rising cost of used manuals creates a barrier that limits the ability of new drivers to experience the joy of stick shift. The decline of manuals is creating a more exclusive market, where buyers must pay a premium for the privilege of shifting gears. Yet the loss of manuals isn't just about individual drivers, it's also reshaping the automotive industry as a whole. Industry shifts and innovation, and as manuals disappear, automakers are doubling down on convenience, efficiency, and automation. The death of the manual transmission reflects larger trends in the automotive industry. Automakers are adapting to changing consumer preferences and technological advancements, prioritizing features that appeal to today's drivers. From autonomous driving systems to fully electric powertrains, the focus is on innovation and convenience. Automatic transmissions have been central to this shift. Modern automatics offer faster gear changes, better fuel efficiency, and compatibility with advanced technologies like adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist. These features align with the demands of a market that values ease of use over engagement. The rise of electric vehicles has further accelerated the decline of manuals. EVs don't require multi-speed transmissions because their electric motors provide instant torque and a consistent power band. This eliminates the need for gear changes entirely, rendering manual transmissions obsolete in the EV space. However, not all automakers are willing to let go of manuals entirely. Brands like Porsche and BMW are exploring ways to keep the spirit of manuals alive in the age of electrification. Porsche, for example, has developed systems that simulate the experience of shifting gears in EVs, giving drivers a sense of control and engagement. While these innovations may not satisfy purists, they represent an attempt to bridge the gap between tradition and technology. Automakers are also rethinking the role of manuals in their product lines. Rather than offering them as standard options, manuals are increasingly being reserved for high-performance models or niche vehicles that cater to enthusiasts. This strategy allows automakers to maintain a connection to their heritage while focusing the bulk of their resources on developing automatics and EVs. Automakers are adapting to new priorities, but in doing so, they're redefining what it means to drive. But as the industry moves forward, how can enthusiasts and everyday drivers keep the spirit of manuals alive? Keeping manuals alive. Is there a way to save manuals, or are they destined to fade into history? Despite the challenges, there are ways to keep the legacy of manual transmissions alive. Enthusiast communities, online platforms, and niche manufacturers are playing a crucial role in preserving the art of driving stick. Online auction sites like Bring a Trailer and Row Your Own have created dedicated spaces for buying and selling manual-equipped cars. These platforms cater to enthusiasts looking for specific models, helping to sustain interest and demand for manuals. The growth of these communities shows that there is still a passionate market for stick-shift cars. Driving schools and car clubs are also stepping up to teach the next generation of drivers how to use a manual transmission. For many young people, learning to drive stick is becoming a badge of honor, a way to stand out in a world dominated by automatics. These efforts are helping to ensure that the skill doesn't disappear entirely. Some automakers are continuing to offer manuals in accessible models. For example, Mazda's MX-5 Miata and Subaru's WRX still feature manual options, giving enthusiasts affordable choices in a shrinking market. These cars prove that manuals can coexist with modern technologies and still appeal to a loyal fan base. Ultimately, the survival of manuals depends on drivers. As long as there is demand, no matter how niche, there will be companies willing to supply. Manuals may no longer dominate the market, but they can continue to thrive in specific segments where they are valued for their unique driving experience. Manuals may never regain their former glory, but their legacy lives on in the hands of those who refuse to let go. So, what does the decline of manuals mean for you, and how can you help shape their future? The death of manuals isn't just a story about cars, it's about how we drive, what we value, and where we're headed. What do you think about the decline of manual transmissions? Do you believe they still have a place in today's market, or are they better left in the past? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories about driving stick. And while you're here, subscribe to our channel for more stories about the cars, technologies, and trends shaping the industry. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.